Welcome to The Authentic Path, where we explore the intersection of leadership, performance science, and ancient wisdom. I'm your host, Dr. Vanessa Calderon. I'm a Harvard-trained physician and healer with over 20 years of leadership and business development experience. I blend science and ancestral wisdom with proven strategies to help you get the results you desire in work and in life without losing yourself along the way. Let's get started. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. We are talking about something important today, and that is self-forgiveness, and not the fluffy self-forgiveness, like let's just let it go. No, self-forgiveness as a real practice, the kind that changes the way your nervous system shows up, the kind that changes your leadership presence and your capacity to take really bold action without collapsing into shame. Because if you are building anything meaningful in this world, if you're building a business, a team, a body of work, a legacy, you, sweet friends, we're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a mistake. Me too. And you will likely disappoint yourself because the more you are tied to being a high functioner, a high achiever, creating success, the harder it is to experience disappointment. And you're going to look back and you're going to think, ooh, I wish I handled that differently. So the question isn't whether we're going to make mistakes. The question is what happens inside of us when we do make mistakes. How do I repair? Or do I repair? Or do I punish myself? How do I learn from this? Or do I just spiral? Do I evolve? Or do I shame myself into staying small? So that's what we're going to dive into today. And I'm going to give you a really simple, powerful, science-informed process for self-forgiveness that I have pulled from so many life experiences, from doing a lot of the own research myself, but also from practicing it myself because I needed to go hard on self-forgiveness because that was something I did not do well. Okay, so let's just jump in here. So let's name the water that we swim in. So many of us, especially high performers, high achievers, we're socialized to believe that the harder we are on ourselves, the more success we're going to have. I remember I had a client once. She was successful by almost every measure, and she didn't consider herself a runner, and she wanted to start running. She wanted to run it, so she signed up for a half marathon. Go big or go home. So she'd signed up for a half marathon, and she had this running plan that she was going to do, and she was trying to go from 0 to 100. Like she was on the couch all the time, never run before, to training for this half marathon. And she couldn't get herself to get her shoes on. And when we talked about it, she was so mean about it. I just can't, I'm just not disciplined. I need to be more disciplined. I was like, whoa, hold on a second. Let's just slow down a little bit. And what she thought is that if she slowed down or she just observed this with compassion, that she was going to fail. She was never going to run. She was never going to get those shoes on if she wasn't more disciplined. So we were taught that harshness equals success, or that self-criticism means that we will improve, and that if we punish ourselves, we will be held accountable. And so some of us learned this when we were at work, when we were training to become physicians or lawyers. Some of us learned this in corporate world, and some of us learned this in the entrepreneurial world. And many of us learned this in our own family systems. It shows up as these like sort of weird badges of honor, like, for example, I worked 12 days straight and I didn't eat anything all day, or I haven't rested in weeks, or I'm super tired, but I got all of these things done. And I'm going to just say this with a lot of kindness and compassion that those examples, those things that we hold as badges of honors, they're not necessarily something to celebrate. They're just survival mode with sort of like this little cute outfit on, but it's just trauma responses after trauma response after trauma response. And those are all coming from shame. And shame does not make us better. Shame makes us shrink. Shame makes us smaller. Shame puts this like an electric fence around us that it's so hard for us to come out of. Shame is what blocks us from being our most authentic selves. And that is not what we want, because when we don't forgive ourselves, all we're doing is turning on that electric fence of shame. And from a neuroscience perspective, that shame, it activates our threat circuitry. The same circuitry that gets turned on when we're in our fight or flight system, shame does the same thing. And when you're in a protection mode, you don't access your full creativity, innovation, problem solving. You don't access your empathy. What you're accessing instead is your fight or flight response, or for many of us listening, your fawn response. Fawn is another trauma response, and it shows up as people pleasing. So practicing self-forgiveness isn't something soft. It's an essential skill for us as humans, for us as leaders, for us as entrepreneurs. Okay, so one of the most powerful ways to think about this and simplest ways to think about this is really simple. And it's just really thinking about it as talking to yourself, offering yourself the same forgiveness that you would offer your best friend. If my best friend did something bad, how would I talk to her? What would I say to her? If my best friend was running late to lunch, what would I say? Would I tell her, you're such a mess? You're always ruining things. You're always late. Why can't you be on time? I hope not. I hope you would meet them with love and compassion and say something like, hey, you're human. Hey, it's okay. Hey, don't worry about it. Hey, we'll figure it out. What do you need in this moment? When you can offer yourself the same thing that you'd offer your best friend with that level of compassion that you're able to hold for someone else, you can hold that level of compassion and forgiveness for yourself. So one of the biggest reasons we don't offer ourselves self-forgiveness when things are not going well is because we're so afraid that if we forgive ourselves, we're going to make the same mistake again. So one of the things that I think is a big takeaway here for all of you is what we end up doing instead when we do something that we label as failure or label as bad is we hold it with a ton of judgment and a ton of self-criticism, because we think that if we hold it with judgment and criticism, it's going to keep us from doing it again. That if I keep feeling the pain, I won't do it to myself again. But here's takeaway number one that I want you to just hold really, really dearly, that judgment, that self-criticism, that is not leading to love or success. That is leading to shrinking. And the antidote to judgment is curiosity. So self-forgiveness begins with curiosity. When something did go wrong, when you are holding yourself tightly because you missed a run or you failed at something or you said something mean to somebody, forgiveness begins with curiosity. When you can ask yourself, instead of what's wrong with me, you start with, why did that make sense for me at the time? Why did I think that that was okay? Or what was going on? Curiosity, just curiosity. Why did that make sense for me at the time? Because sometimes we do something because it makes sense at the time. And this really matters because most people are not consciously doing things to fail. We're not consciously doing things to be mean. We're not consciously doing things to hurt other people's feelings. We're trying to solve a problem. We're trying to meet a need. We're trying to protect something, and that's usually ourselves. So instead of judgment, we can offer ourselves questions that are curious. What need was I trying to meet? What was I afraid of? What was I protecting? What did I not know yet? What was I carrying at the time that I don't carry now? And just pause there for a second. For many leaders and entrepreneurs, sometimes the thing we need to forgive ourselves is to really just be calm and pause for a second and just ask ourselves these questions and see what comes up for us. Just wait and see what comes up. Because what you will see is you'll start to notice that maybe it made sense at the time. Maybe it was trying to protect something that mattered. So again, the hidden block, the biggest reason why we don't forgive ourselves is we're afraid that if I forgive myself, I'll make the mistake again. One of the biggest reasons people don't let themselves off the hook. And gosh, man, I remember when I was a senior resident, I had a junior resident. And we were able to take moonlighting shifts. And a lot of people wanted to take moonlighting shifts because it paid extra dough. It paid extra money. We didn't have a lot of money in residency. So I had this junior resident that was always picking up moonlighting shifts. And we had one rule. You cannot pick up a moonlighting shift if you're supposed to be on call, because if you're on call, you got to be able to come in. And she did. She picked up a moonlighting shift even though she was on call, and she got caught. And holy smokes, I had to talk to her about it. And it was uncomfortable for me to talk to her about it, but it was so uncomfortable for her to receive it because she was an incredible doctor. She was so kind. She was a leader in the department, and she had so much shame for doing it. And of course, shame for getting caught. And anyway, we told her she couldn't do it again, whatever. And I ran into her later and she was still holding that in. Like, I can't believe I did that. I feel so ashamed. And I was like, holy smokes. Like, in my mind, I'm like, get over it. Like we've gotten over it. Get over it. Why I don't like, I believe, I trust you. I don't think you're going to do it again. But she couldn't get over it. She had so much shame because she was afraid that if she got over it, that she would do it again. That next time there was a moonlighting shift that was available, she'd pick it up and take it. She's afraid she would do it again. And so she thought that she needed to hold on to that to essentially keep punishing herself. Because the other reason we don't forgive ourselves, one is afraid that we won't do it. We're afraid that we'll do it again. But the other is I'm afraid that I haven't punished myself enough yet. So I can't forgive myself because forgiving myself means I'm letting myself off the hook. And that's really, really, really tough. I want to offer so much compassion if you're holding on to that because self-punishment is not accountability. Self-punishment is emotional violence with this label of being productive. It's like, no, I have to hold on to this because it means that I'm holding myself accountable. No, that's just being violent to yourself because forgiveness doesn't mean that you're not going to learn from the experience. And forgiveness doesn't mean that you're not going to grow or make better choices next time. Forgiveness means that you can look and you can learn and you can grow from the experience. Forgiveness gives you the space to grow because you're not wasting your energy in shame spirals. And one frame that I really, really love about this is it's safe for me to forgive myself. I tell this to my clients a lot because when they're holding on to things like something they said to their kid a long time ago, something they did to a spouse, a big mistake that they made in themselves and their business, it's okay to forgive yourself. You can trust yourself to forgive yourself. Trust yourself to know that you're going to grow from this experience. Because one of the other reasons we don't forgive ourselves is our nervous system doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe to forgive ourselves because we think we're going to do it again. So offering yourself that thought, it's safe for me to forgive myself, then it makes it easier for you to forgive yourself. So I'm going to give you just kind of a step-by-step process here to practice self-forgiveness. Number one, notice where there was something that was violated. Was something violated? Because usually the reason why we're upset with ourselves is because we broke something that mattered to us. We were out of integrity. We were out of our own sort of moral code. So notice where that happened and label it. And label it as true and accept it for what it is. I did something that I was out of integrity with, and it made me feel disappointed. Whew, that is even hard to say out loud, but notice that and say, it's okay. I'm human. I make mistakes. It's okay. It's okay. Why did that make sense for me at the time? And then label it. So for her, well, my junior resident, for her, it made sense because she grew up in a house with a lot of lack, not a lot of money. And now she's a resident, not making any money. And she was partly on and off supporting her mom. And now she's at a time where she has to support her mom. So she was working a ton of shifts, a ton of moonlighting shifts. And so for her, it made sense because I needed to make the money to support my mom. So those were her thoughts. So why did that make sense at the time? Because she didn't think it was a big deal. The likelihood of her getting called in on call was like close to 0%. And she needed to make the money. So she thought it was totally safe for her to take that shift. Okay, that makes sense. So notice that and then give yourself that safety. It's safe from what lesson did I learn here? I learned that I actually prefer to be in integrity and not take that call if I can, or try to get that call shift covered. The lesson I learned here is I choose integrity because the reason we're so hard on ourselves is because we're good people, is because we have integrity, is because we have a strong moral code. So if you can lean in and trust yourself, trust your strong moral code, trust your integrity, and really say like, okay, I see it, I name it, I made a mistake, and I am so sorry, Vanessa. I forgive you. There's this also really beautiful practice I'll share with you. It's an indigenous Hawaiian practice. And what it is the 4 statements, which is, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. When I learned that, I started using that for myself all the time when I practiced self-forgiveness. Anytime I felt like I did something that was out of integrity, or even for me, even if it was something mean I said to myself, or if I was being really hard on myself, I would pause and I would practice that. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. and I would put my right hand over my heart to do it. Because if you listen to that last episode, you know, right hand over the heart for at least 20 seconds secretes oxytocin, which is a really feel good hormone that creates intimacy with ourselves. So something for you to practice out there. So again, you name what happened, name what was violated. Number 2, give yourself the space to ask yourself, I wonder why, like out of curiosity, not judgment. Why did this make sense for me at the time? Because we're good people. There's a reason why it makes sense. And what lesson can I take away from this? What did I learn here? And what would be possible if I learned from this and forgave myself? What would be possible? Oof. Okay. So we talked a lot about self-forgiveness today. And I just want to make sure that when you are really sitting with pain that you're holding on to, pain because of a past transgression, it's really, really important for you to remember that the more you can forgive yourself, the less you're going to carry, the less shame you're going to carry, the more you will be able to be expansive. Sometimes a few of the things I also offer to myself are, thank you for showing me what it is I needed to learn at the time. Thank you for helping me see what I was still carrying. Like my resident, for example, she was still carrying a ton of fear of scarcity, of not having enough, of not being able to support her mom. Or thank you for supporting me towards my next evolution, because that's usually what happens. You learn a lesson, you create safety here to forgive yourself, and then you're able to grow from that. Your next evolution comes from forgiving yourself. And this is not spiritual bypassing. I am not saying go and make all these mistakes on purpose. Of course not. I'm saying we make mistakes because we are human. Mistakes are human experiences. We're all going to make them. But we don't want to hold ourselves hostage to that emotional violence by not forgiving ourselves. We want to be able to grow from it and offer ourselves a lot of love, a lot of compassion, and grow from that experience. Okay, sweet friends. The more you do this, the more you will realize that it feels safer and safer and safer to be the most authentic version of yourself, because you start coming home to yourself. You start belonging to yourself. So again, curiosity. What is it that I needed at the time? Offer yourself some compassion. Of course, that makes sense. I was doing the best that I can with what I had. Of course, I picked up that shift. I was super afraid that I wouldn't have enough money to cover my mom. I was doing the best with what I had at the time. And it's safe for me to forgive myself now. It doesn't take away the learning, but it's safe for me to grow from this. And then if you want to practice that beautiful Indigenous Hawaiian practice, it's, again, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Okay, sweet friends, with that, I will leave you and I will offer you the invitation to see where can you start practicing self-forgiveness for yourself? Where can you start releasing the stuff that you're still holding on to that's really holding you hostage so that you're able to grow into your next evolution? All right, sweet friends, I'll see you next week. Hey friends, if this episode resonated, please take a quick second and leave a review, share it with a friend, or post it to your community. It's how we keep helping others who are walking a similar path, and how together we grow the movement of consciousness in business, leadership, and life. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you next week.